Hello, I am Fernanda Paiva, Hitchhiking Stars, and taking you on a journey weekly to see what astrologically, what kind of rides can we take? Where is that going to lead in our personal journeys as well? How can that fit in the life that we're trying to create? So I work with constructive astrology, always looking for opportunities rather than basically opportunities for growth rather than opportunities to bone. So maybe this should be my slogan. So how are you all doing? I mean, what's happened to you last week? What's been going on? I wrote a blog post about Saturn in Pisces, so I've been feeling quite strongly the Saturn in Pisces. I've got Sun and Mercury in Virgo, so we talked about that last week as well, I think. And so yeah, I wrote a blog post after ages. I haven't written anything, so that was cool. Also, I'm sort of like traveling around. You can see again, I've got a different background behind me. I am not in Bristol anymore. I am in Cornwall, but which is like on the coast, southwest of England, and I am headed to the Lake District. So the Lake District is known as this really beautiful natural place of natural beauty here in England, which I really look forward to see. I am very much into the sort of English landscape, and so I'm very excited to go to the Lake District. So interestingly as well, I'm in this place in Cornwall where the film The Witches was filmed. So do you remember that film from the 90s? So I'm not sure if the new version from 2020s was recorded there as well. But anyhow, I'm just doing a little catch up here, letting you know where I'm at, what I'm doing. It was really nice to see that hotel last week. Yeah, it's one of my childhood sort of films. I used to really love it, and obviously about witches. Anyhow, back to astrology, which is what we're really interested in talking about here, and I'm sure that's what brought you here to my channel as well. So what's going on this week? I mean, there's not quite, but there are like two main things very important this week that is happening in the world of astrology, and that you might feel strongly in your life based on what your astrology chart is as well, what kind of personal planets you have. So don't forget, no matter what I talk about here regarding transits, planetary movements, and cycles, that needs to be tied back to your natal chart. You're always going to have your personal lens to look into, to see, to feel, to interpret things according to your personal story, your personal taste as well, and how you want to work with these energies. So don't forget to bring that into your chart. But let's have a look with no more delays. Let's have a look at this week's astrology. So here we have Friday, 17th of March. And okay, cool. So we just had that triple conjunction. I'm pretty sure I talked about that last week when we had our previous video. The triple conjunction in Pisces, Neptune, Sun, and Mercury as well. They're still very much within orb, and they're also square Mars. So Mars in Gemini, we're trying to rush into saying something, into communicating, into trying to clarify something, but we can't quite get there. So there's this feeling, right? There's this strange feeling brewing. I saw astrologer, oh gosh, I knew I was gonna forget now. Jessica Laniadou. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I really like her work. I love to see her videos and the things she talks about. I think she's got a great way of seeing astrology. And she was talking about boundaries when it comes to these Piscean placements. And she was talking about boundaries as in, like, boundaries are not just the limits that we set to others and we say to them, hey, this is my space, don't come here. Boundaries are also what we think about and how much we engage with certain visions, with certain thoughts, with certain fears, with certain confusions. So boundaries can also be related to our inner, internal intellectual boundaries. And I think that's very, very to the point, and a very interesting perspective coming from her as well, because Mercury is involved. And because Mercury is the ruler of that Mars in Gemini as well. So we're still very much navigating these navigating these astrological currents, right? So we're still kind of thinking, being a little bit confused, maybe being extra inspired, hopefully, because I think that's that Pisces at best, that Piscean Neptunian strong energy. But definitely there is a sense of I want to take action, but I'm just not sure what or how. So there's definitely that kind of feeling there with this configuration. Well, it's still going. Moon Pluto conjunction may have thrown a little bit of intensity there in the mix. And also, we have recently, probably yesterday, I think, or a few hours today, it was yesterday, Venus moving to Taurus. So that's Venus in its own sign. That's really powerful. It's coming to a conjunction to the North Node as well. And that's definitely a shift in perception, a shift on our perception of values as well. And that's a great time because Venus is in its own sign, so it's very powerfully placed. That's a great time for doing a bit of me time. You know, I've done my nails today, and I don't know, just to look after yourself, do something nice, have a nice bath, do something Taurian as well there. So let's keep on moving and let's have a look at what's actually happening this week, which is the topic here for the for this video, really. I mean, so here we have Saturday the 18th of March. I mean, I have Jupiter Chiron still very much within orb. I feel that we're sort of approaching April. I mean, obviously that's not the topic of this video, but I feel that we are approaching April, and it's gonna be a very healing month. I was writing a little bit of information to the Witches of Instagram, and I really feel that the key word for April is gonna be healing, is gonna be overcoming something. And I feel that these energies are already kind of building up, all right, from March. So cool. Here we have Venus made a sextile to Saturn as well. It's nice for becoming a little bit more solid or having a more solid feeling in regarding to our values, to what we want, to what we desire as well. You know, having a bit of clarity on what you desire. You know how much people talk about manifest the life you want, manifest and love attraction and this and that. But if you're confused about what you want, if you're confused about what you actually want in a partner, how you actually want your relationship to go, then it becomes difficult to manifest, you know, that. So that's a great day for you to try and seek a little bit of clarity regarding values, regarding that sort of inquiry. Let's put it that way. We also have Mercury at 29 degrees Pisces, so it's just transitioning into Aries. Boom, there we go. So Mercury and Aries, again, sort of like for bringing our thoughts to another level, bringing our thoughts to another direction there as well with Aries things, Aries flavors, and sort of kicking start the Aries season. So we're heading towards the Aries season, is basically the beginning of the astrological year as well for us. You know, this is the end of the year, so it's a very transitional period as well, very transitional moment. Is interesting as well for the northern hemisphere. That's sort of like having spring approaching, and that's where I am right now. So I really feel that sort of expectation around sun, light, and you know, the sort of fire sign, the fire energy, you know, the desire to start doing things a little bit more, getting more active somehow. And I think after this triple conjunction in Pisces, there's going to be a little bit more clarity, is slowly about the sort of action that we want to take, the sort of direction that we want to head towards, and things like that. So Mercury will be starting that. And also for a brief period, which is also interesting, I love mutual receptions. So in astrology, we call mutual receptions when a sign is in the, so a planet is in the sign of another planet's sign and vice versa, right? So if I made myself very clear, when Mercury Virgo wasn't very clear here, but Mercury is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. There is Mars, which is in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. So they work as a little pair. They're sort of like not the fruit, but pair, as in like two, as a couple, as a, they have a little understanding of each other, and they sort of like communicate with each other a little bit more. So there is a kind of a brief couple of days there, because Mars will be moving. I think it's more than a couple of days. So we have a few days there when they're going to be in mutual reception. And so there is a potential of understanding what our actions need to be, or like having a more direct, understanding of the lack of action that we had to have when we had this emphasis in Pisces, or what seeds we're brewing here. What do we want to set intentions for? Remember, we're heading towards a new moon, and this is one of the big things as well that I want to talk about in this video. So that Mercury Mars mutual reception brings another level, another layer of pairing up our actions with our thoughts, or instinctively knowing what to do or where to go, or things like that. So pay attention to it. How that plays out in your life. Is also the last square of a series of squares between Mars and Neptune that we've had in the last few months, since Mars spent so long in Gemini, and it squared that Neptune a few times on the way, when we went backwards and went forwards again, and now is the last set of squares there. So that whole idea of like sitting in meditation to know what you need to do, to know what action you need to take, well, that sort of like is beginning to shift. So we're beginning to get a little bit more clarity. I feel that mutual reception is a little tip, is a little kind of symbol there that we're beginning to get a little bit more clarity. Okay, so if you've been feeling a bit confused, well, you might get a bit more clarity. But what you want, that's Mars as well. What do you want? Sometimes people say, what do you want? I don't know. I don't know what you want. Or what I want. And obviously I think this is coming from a mooning Libra person, it's like, but what do you want? What do you want? What do you prefer? So there's a little bit of that flavor there, I think, in my life as well. So I guess that's why I'm saying it. Anyhow, Sunday 19th of March, we also have this very powerful conjunction between Moon and Saturn. Now remember, the Moon is a kind of a feeling that we have, right? Because the Moon moves so often. It goes around the zodiac so quick as well. Every 28 days, goes around everything. So it's more like fleeting moods. And so that Moon Saturn conjunction there might be a time where we're taking our emotions more seriously. We're trying to hold our emotions back. That's the Saturn. But with the Moon there's something about those intense emotions that we might become very aware of. Maybe, it could be us becoming very serious about our art and finally knowing what to do with all the inspirations that we got during this triple conjunction in Pisces. So I'm not sure any of those alternatives. Okay, again, remember, astrology is multivalent. Symbols in astrology are multivalent. They're not just this, just that. If someone says something to you that's scary, disempowering, then just plain negative, then you don't have to take that. You don't have to embrace it and make it into a reality. You don't have to say, hey, my life is crap because they've got Venus in fall and everything goes wrong. Like, you don't need to embrace that. Okay, astrological symbolism is multivalent, so there are loads of layers of meanings that we can attribute to it. Okay, so here we are, Monday the 20th of March, and look at this. This is another of the topics really of this week, but we'll get there. But look at that, Pluto 29, Capricorn 56, minutes of arc. Anyhow, okay, so let's keep on going. So here, Moon still in Pisces. The Sun is at 2950. So on the 20th of March, the Sun is going to make a move to Aries. It's like the beginning of Aries season. But more interestingly, 21st of March, so the official beginning of spring, right? The equinox as well, is when we have the new moon. So the next new moon is at 0 degrees Aries. It's a very fresh degree of Aries. It's so symbolic and it's so wonderful, isn't it? It's like the very beginning of spring and 0. So first the first degree of Aries is involved in this picture, is involved in this new moon, this new lunar cycle slash new astrological year is all sort of happening at the same time. So I would suggest a little ritual if you are into that, if you do like this kind of things, to really embrace, to really bring forward some kind of new cycle in your life, some kind of new beginning in your life. Declutter, throw stuff away, move on from things that don't work for you, you know, all of that stuff. Look how many planets we have in Aries as well. So we're sort of like moving on from that Neptunian Piscean emphasis of being confused, being not sure where to go or what's going on. Sit in meditation, try to, you know, get in touch with some spiritual revelation about where you're at. Well, that's sort of moving into action, you know, fire, cardinal fire, that's Aries, that's really about taking action and going for it, you know. At the same time, Venus conjunction that north node, it's a nice kind of placement there as well, where we can lead our lives, or we can move on from the comfort zone of that south node in Scorpio. So we can move on from that as like a karmic growth towards our values as well. That's where that Venus is. It's like follow those values, listen to those values, and be in touch with them as well. I think that's a wonderful advice here with that Venus on that north node, and that could be part of this intentions and this sort of ritual for this new moon as well, for this new astrological year. We also have to have a look at Mars because of the emphasis in Aries in this new moon, and boom, that's that Mars at 28 degrees Gemini. Well, again, still that mutual reception that I talked about. So again, that sense of understanding. And also potentially, you know, our actions being directed by our thoughts instinctively, instinctive action directed by thoughts. So we're not just thoughtless actions, because of that Mars in Gemini as well. So there's something about that flavor that could be part of this whole picture as well. But definitely that Mars in Gemini is important because it rules everything that's in Aries here. So where we shift our energy levels, and that Mars in Gemini will bring our urge to communicate, to bring things to words, to take action. That's also intellectual. That's also fulfilling our intellects as well. All right. So that new moon is quite an interesting one. And then Alice, Thursday, boom, 23rd of March, 2023. So 2323, that's quite interesting. 230323. I don't know. You guys are into numerology. Write down in the comments there. Let me know what you think about that. But definitely, Pluto starts to move on from Capricorn to Aquarius. Now that's a big deal. That is a big deal. Pluto is the last planet in the, you know, solar system, is the furthest one. It moves very slowly. So from our perspective, it really relates to social movements, whole generations, and a kind of a collective view, a collective purging, if I may say as well, because Pluto relates to purging, relates to the dark side, relates to the shadows, relates to regeneration and regenerating the shadows as well, right? What's not working, what needs to go in order to survive. That's what Lise Green used to say as well, or said in one of our lectures. Pluto is the collective will to survive. I really like this. The collective will to survive is shifting from Capricorn into Aquarius. I mean, I should do a whole series of videos just about that. You know, I've given talks about Pluto and Aquarius and that, all of that jazz. So I can't just focus on this right now because there's so much to cover. But pay attention to the 23rd of March here, because that shift is really important. If you have anything in the early degrees of the fixed signs, and for me that's going to be Pluto square Pluto, because my Pluto is a 0 degree Scorpio. So that's the beginning of my Pluto square Pluto. But if you have anything personal, your sun, your moon, your Venus, your Mars, your Mercury, well, that's extremely extra important to you. So again, write down in the comments, and if you want, I can give you some feedback, some quick feedback on what I think this transit could be meaning to you, or how to explore this transit in a constructive astrology way. So that Pluto is moving to Aquarius. I think there's a lot to say about a new world order emerging, about AI as well, like, and how much, you know, AI, like in my talk, and I love to use academic papers in my talks and do actual research as well when I'm giving a talk on a subject. So one of the things they said that I shared in my talk, which is very interesting, is that the only thing about AI, like, or one of the things that was really like under the spotlight for me during that research, was that the policymakers have a real trouble with AI, because the speed that AI is being developed, and then there's another one, and there's another thing, and there's another thing, and the amount of data that we have available as well now, because of the digital era, really, basically, is very difficult for policymakers to create some kind of regulation. So it's a kind of a wild west when it comes to the digital world. And that Pluto in Aquarius will definitely be showing us that more and more. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, we're usually human beings a little bit scared of change, you know, sometimes, but it's part of life, I guess. And the interesting thing of this ingress, you know, because that's basically the ingress chart. So the ingress chart is the chart of a planet moving into a sign. So the ingress, I mean, I think it's fabulous that Pluto enters Aquarius just after new moon, which falls on the equinox. So there's some very auspicious like things that are happening there. And like I said in previous videos, March is a very powerful, strong, important, big shifts happening, and this is definitely one of the main ones. But also we have a kite configuration. So if you look at here, there's a little blue triangle, and some of you might disagree with me, some of you astrologers, that is, because there are a whole different bunch of orbs that people use, larger, smaller, blah blah blah. Well, for me, there is a kite in there. I do tend to work with a little bit, you know, of different orbs, and also it's information. So it's part of the ingress chart, but it's also in the is a waxing. I'm just saying all the time. Is a waxing aspect. So it's not waning. It's not separating. Basically, it's applying. So it's the beginning of this kite, which will culminate in April. So I feel that April has this really keyword healing and stuff, because we do have a powerful grand trine that will be happening for a few days, and it's the beginning of it. So a kite is basically a sextile, you know, a planet, two sextiles, and the trine. So Saturn trine Mars sextile. I mean, the moon is there involved, but it's fleeting. Is the North Node in Taurus, Fort Taurus. But then we also have a grand trine. That's what a kite is, and the bigger these grand configurations, I think the more relevant they are in terms of collective evolution somehow, or like something important that the sky is reflecting. And I love to think about what Bernadette Brady once said in her book about prognostication, which is a wonderful book, by the way, and you should all get it if you're interested. But Bernadette Brady said that trines are connected with the removal of obstacles. So the removal of obstacles, things flow a little bit faster. Yeah. And so grand trine will definitely have that times two. There's a kind of a removal of obstacles there. And so we have a grand trine that is forming with that Mars moving to Cancer, will be in water. But I'll talk about that more next week when it actually is in orb and Mars have made that move into Cancer. So for now, it's just this beautiful, important, intense shift from that Pluto in Aquarius. And just so you have an idea, I mean, Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. So it's a big deal. It's a very long-lasting transit. Pluto will pop back to Capricorn this year, and then pop back to Aquarius, and then pop back to Capricorn a couple of times before it just moves into Aquarius. But nevertheless, that's the beginning of the transition that we're all witnessing. So please have a look, witness that, you know, share with me how you're feeling. Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling excited? Are you looking forward to it? What's going on there for you? Where is that in your chart as well, that transition? That's in my 3rd house. So Pluto has been my 3rd house for quite a while. It kind of culminated as well with the masters and a lot of like changes on how I think, finding my voice and communicating and etc. So that's been very the personal journey for me, basically, of that Pluto. And now Pluto moving into Aquarius, I mean, that's going to pick up my IC eventually. So that's definitely changes in the family, the nuclear family, you know, potentially my parents going, you know, they're getting older. And I don't want to sound too detached about that, but I also don't want to get emotional on camera right now. But and it also just like quite a few years for that Pluto to get to my 4th house. But definitely those are some of the personal meanings that it has to me. So do that to you as well. Find that. And you know what's very interesting? If you trace it back, go back into previous transits that you've had of Pluto in Aquarius and find out, not Pluto in Aquarius, sorry, of Pluto in general. You know, when Pluto was in Sagittarius, what was going on in your chart if you're older. And I believe you are a little bit older. My audience tends to be a little bit older. So have a look at what was going on when Pluto was in Sagittarius, when Pluto was in Scorpio, when Pluto went into Capricorn. What did that mean to you? Did it cross over your ascendant? Did it square your moon or your sun? Did it conjoin it? What was going on in your life around that time? Because astrology is also connecting the dots from back, you know, back to forward again. So you don't need to just look forward to see what's coming, but you can look back. And that can give you a lot of tips about what do you understand of that principle? How do you work with that principle? And you can see patterns, you know? There is a connection of Pluto, for example, with menstruation for me or growing up. You know, Pluto was on my ascendant when I had my menstruation for the first time. So there's some interesting things. My solar arc was on my ascendant when I moved to England as well. As like this huge move in my life. So you can kind of try and trace it back as well and find out what it means to you. And so then you can make sense of this Pluto in Aquarius transit as well. But this is definitely one of the most relevant transits and shifts of this week. And you can see here the blue triangle getting a little bit stronger, right, as Mars approaches Cancer. And I'll talk about this Grand Trine a little bit more next week. I mean, it's a beautiful Grand Trine in water. Has a lot of it has a lot of promise to heal emotions, to let go of past traumas, past emotions, freeze the emotions, congealed emotions, you know, that South Node in Scorpio there. So there's some like really beautiful interpretation that we're going to be talking about next week. And that's next Friday. I mean, next Friday I'll talk about next Friday. But there is a little triple conjunction here, a quadruple conjunction, because we got North Node in Taurus, Venus in Taurus, Moon in Taurus, and Uranus as well. There's something about enjoying the pleasures of life next Friday, and Friday is Venus Day, so maybe that's a great day to book yourself into a spa, to do something, you know, that will be very Taurian for you, to do some gardening. I mean, gardening is work as well, but you could do something relaxing on that Friday. I think that could be a great thing to do. So anyhow, this is what I had to say about the astrological journey of this week. So let me know in the comments how you're feeling. Are you looking forward to this Pluto in Aquarius? Are you a bit dreading? You're a bit like, oh, I don't know. Like, I have an ascendant in Aquarius. I'm not sure what that's going to mean to me. Last time, you know, Pluto was in whatnot, this happened to me. So let me know. I'm very interested. I always love to connect on a very personal level. I mean, on a very with exaggeration, but I love to know what you're going through, who you are, and to have a proper real dialogue, you know. I just really enjoy that. In the meantime, wish me good luck with my travels. It's a very long drive from where I am, but I'll be seeing you all next week. Wishing you a great new moon, And until then,